sons.
Yeah. I think that's one of the Campbells, isn't that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
So many of these names we aren't familiar with, but it's 21 persons, and at the time the school's population was 200 persons. So 10% of the population was lost. So that would be in comparison to us losing 150 students today. So as I was saying before, this article was found by Mr. Orain at the Gleaner of H.M. Kemba, who died in Afghanistan as the World War had extended to Afghanistan.
And there are a couple other sheets. The Gleaner was really helpful. They allowed us to go through their digital archives, and we got out about 30 pages of information. We identified about half of the names. And what was fascinating is that in the First World War, the commanding officers wrote very detailed letters to the families to say how their sons died. So it shares with them that they went over the top of the song leading them in, and they were the first to this straight with machine gun fire and died there. Two of them were fighter pilots who were shot down, Stockholm, and one of the fascinating things, well, for me personally, because one of my personal interests is military strategy and tactics. The percentage of losses by the officer corps in the British Army for junior officers was higher than the enlisted men in the First World War. The reason is we're coming from the 19th century, where there's a tradition of cavalry charges with the officers at the front. They use the same technique in the war. So the junior officers were the first to get killed, and then the technology had changed, and because machine gun fire became so prevalent. And what you found is actually a reflection on how, sadly, ironically, good Wolmer's is. A lot of them joined as enlisted men and got promoted almost immediately to junior officers. So they were killed as a result of facing enemy fire. But it's really very moving to read the Gleaner stories, and I know that Mr. Sanko, for the history teacher, also have the frame and put in a prominent place. Now the advantage of this is every day when the boys come, they'll be able to see this because this is so important. This is history. Actually, what they said on the other side, you learn to care for one's brother, sacrifice for others. Okay, questions?
You know they had fighter planes in 1914.
Yes, one of them is here.
It's like a one-engine thing.
Yeah. Here it is. Lieutenant Ivan Stockhausen fell in aerial combat with the Bulgars, so that was the Bulgarians who were fighting on the other side. But that's a really interesting story because it's like the Knights of the medieval times. He was shot down and killed on the following day. An enemy plane flew back over his airfield, the British airfield, and dropped an envelope. And when they opened it, this is what it read. And this is from the enemy, who came back over. It says, translated to English, the aviator C.V. McGregor and his pilot, that was Stockhausen, fell heroically in an aerial combat with one of our planes. They have been buried in a cemetery near the church with full military honors. We wish you to tell the families of the two unfortunate aviators that their sons fell like heroes and we are preserving their graves. We always admire heroes and soldiers like yours who die for their country, though even enemies. The Bulgars, October 1917.